Hey guys, it's Zach from Nexus Performance here at Pro Raw Gym. Today we're starting a little bit of a YouTube series for you guys of a couple of cool informational topics, and today I'm touching on how machines can be really useful in benefiting your overall strength as a powerlifter and pushing hypertrophy in the directions where you need to keep getting strong. So we're going to move down to the back of the gym and I'm going to start breaking down some of these concepts for you. We're going to start off with the example of an RDL, but before we kick off with that, I need to explain three terms to you. What a fulcrum is, what a lever arm is, and what load is. So, load's the easy one. It's whatever you're holding or whatever weight that you're performing an exercise with. The lever arm is essentially the thing that connects that load to the fulcrum. The fulcrum is the joint or the moving body. A really important concept to understand is the further away a load is from the fulcrum, the more difficult or the more energy it takes to move that load. For us as powerlifters, a really important thing to understand is we spend a lot of time stressing lengthened tissues. What I mean by lengthened tissues is whenever your body's in a certain position, muscles are either stretched or contracted. In the example of an RDL, if I go to grab the bar, in this top position here, the load is the barbell in my hand and the fulcrum we're going to talk about is my hip. As my hip goes back, and the load moves away from the fulcrum. As you can see, there's more distance between the barbell and my hip. This is the hardest part of the movement because the bar is as far away from my body and as far away from my hip as it's going to be. In that position, our glutes are on maximum stretch. So in these barbell movements in terms of hinging or deadlifting, your glutes get an absolute pounding in a stretched position. But as that barbell moves towards that top position and it gets really close to the hip again, the perceived load is lighter. So there's a discrepancy between lengthened tissues being stimulated and contracted tissues being stimulated. This is where machines come in. And to explain that a bit more, we're going to go over to the 45-degree back extension. Machines and tools like the 45-degree back extension can do a really good job at changing the force curves to get more loading through different lengths of tissue. So as we said before, in an RDL and a deadlift, we're putting a lot of strain and stress through the lengthened position of the glutes. We can use a tool like this to get way more loading through the shortened position of the glutes. So I'll hop on and give you a look-see. So the reason why things change is because in the top position of a 45-degree back extension, when my glutes are fully locked and everything's extended, if I drop this dumbbell, the line of pull of the dumbbell is going straight down. As you can see, the dumbbell is still a pretty far distance away from my hip, so there's still substantial loading going through the glutes because my upper body is resisting flexing forward. So in the bottom position, we still have a fair bit of loading through the lengthened position, but as we come up, we get a really nice contraction at the top and drive much more load through the shortened position, which as a power lifter, if you imagine you've spent so much time deadlifting and hinging and nailing that lengthened position, adding in some shortened position work will not only help further hypertrophy outcomes, but will also make sure you're not overtaxing the positions you need to use in your compound movements and your competition style pulling. Alrighty, so now we have a concept, an idea of how these shortened and lengthened positions can be differently taxed in different movements, but why is it relevant to us as powerlifters? Well, as a whole, if you take a really close look at the best powerlifters who are out there, a lot of them are pretty jacked. A really great example is Will and his huge traps, who you'll probably see in different videos. But the idea of it is the more muscle mass that you can accrue, the greater the potential output of force you have is. So when we're looking at maximizing hypertrophy, we not only want load and volume, but we want frequency. So if we're looking at those two things or those three things interplaying, if you're consistently stressing the same patterns in your squat, in your deadlift, not in your bench press because that uses your upper body, but with your squat and your deadlift, you're really heavily taxing lengthened positions of quads, hamstrings, and glutes. So what we want to focus on is how do we still get that same amount of volume in those competition positions to satisfy our demand for technique and to satisfy our demand for actually getting stronger, but still using supplementary movements to further those hypertrophy outcomes, but not taking a huge chunk away from those main movements. And the answer is machines. Machines and different things to manipulate strength curves and put different pressures on different tissue lengths means you can stimulate those tissues more frequency and more frequency means more opportunities for growth. Say, for example, you're taking into account a program and someone is squatting 2 days a week, and that's the maximum amount of squatting volume that they can handle, but you still want to drive a little bit more hypertrophy through the legs. You can use something like a leg extension on a non-squatting day to drive more load through the shortened position of the quad, which is a position which isn't necessarily taxed very heavily in a squat. You can drive further hypertrophy outcomes, you can still satisfy those 2 days a week of squatting, and you can bring a more whole picture of how to get more jacked and stronger using the tools at your disposal. Like a gym like Pro Raw Gym, there's so many tools that you can use, but you can still see so many people just using barbell lifts to get stronger and to get better. All these tools were created not just for bodybuilders to get jacked, but for people to use them to better themselves and get stronger. So don't write off equipment just because you see some half-jacked dude in a stringer top using it every second day. These tools can be immensely useful to lifters, adding muscle mass and getting stronger, and just increasing the frequency of what you're doing in general. Thank you for listening, guys. Hopefully you found that useful. The main take home is don't be afraid of using machines. They can be fantastic tools to help push the outcomes that you want further. Let us know what you thought in the comment section below. Please like, subscribe, and if you want to hear more from us, follow any of the Nexus Instagram pages. My private Instagram is Zach_Congonis. Good luck spelling that last name. Outside of that, hope you guys have a lovely day, and I'll talk to you soon.